Every day, the farmer works to provide food for our growing population. No matter the weather, day of the week, or holiday, the farmer must tend to the land. Generations have protected the land, the soil's health tied to their survival.
The property means a lot to us and to my father, who, this was his family farm. It belonged to his parents. It belonged to his grandparents. And then it belonged to my husband's family all the way back to 1830.
I was born about a football field away from where I'm standing now. This property has been in my family since the either late 1800s or early 90s. My great-grandfather purchased this property for my grandfather and his family when he first got married. And so we was all born here around the same place where my father was born and my grandfather was married and raised the family.
Been here all my life, and this is property of what my people have been here since before the Civil War. And my great-grandfather had it, my grandfather had it, and my dad, he had part of it, and I have 183 acres, which has been in the family that I now have.
That 6 inches of soil that Paul Harvey refers to is under threat in Georgia. Currently, millions of gallons of undisclosed industrial waste is being applied on rural open lands across the state. Regulation and oversight is minimal, leaving Georgians at risk.
On July the 13th of this past summer of 2022, the blue container showed up across the road from our family farm here in Avra. And we didn't know what it was. We've never seen these type of containers, had no idea. And someone called my husband and said, "You've got chicken blood and guts across the road being spread on the farm."
To start with, I stopped over on Clarksmill Road and talked to the guy over there about what they were spreading on the ground. He said, "Well, it's fertilized, to go on it helped the soil and stuff." And I said, "It's not human waste, is it?" And he said, "No." He said, "It's all from dog chow plant and chicken plant and stuff like that." And he said, "You could see out here," he showed me a place where it was all nice and green. He said, "This is what it'll look like when we're done." And you see how the tractors fold it back together and fold the ground back together where it don't disturb the ground. And so I said, "Well, that sounds good, so." And he said, "We'll do soil tests and we'll give you documentation on the soil and how much we put on, how much it needs. If, we don't want to put too much on." But they never did give me none of that. They never did give me no documentation. In fact, we talked that day, and next thing I know, they had 8 tanks over there the next day, and they were bringing 20 to 25 loads of material in a day and just spreading it. And I went over there and I said, "Wow," I said, "I don't have to sign anything or nothing like that." And they said, "No, you don't have to do that. We'll go ahead and put it on and get this covered."
Transparency has never been a part of this equation, and many farmers feel betrayed.
Well, we don't know what's being put out, and they're very secretive about it. And I talked with the guy over the phone, which owns this equipment, and he told me he's an engineer, and anyway, he's putting this stuff out. Well, it's just a quarter of a mile down the road, and I'd kind of like to know what's being put out here in our vicinity. So I asked him, I said, "Could I have a sample of this stuff to have it tested and where we can know?" And he said, "Oh no." He said, "You might tamper with it or change it or whatever." I tell him, I said, I tell you what. I said, "We get a sample and me and you both go to the post office." I said, "We put it in the mail, send it off." And he wasn't into that neither. So it just tells me if they don't want us to have a sample and know what they're putting out, I believe they're hiding something.
He also had told Jimmy at that same time that he would email him, a copy of what the analyzed report. We never saw that email.
I don't like being taken advantage of, and I feel like I'm a fool for what I did, letting people do that to me and stuff. And it's something that, we worked hard for our money, and I'm 74 years old. Mom's 94, and I don't know. I don't know how people can do that. And then plus, all the stuff that they said they was going to do, they're supposed to level it back out, but they putting stuff in there and it's supposed to be covered up. It's not done. They haven't done nothing they said they were going to do. They come in and hurry up and put 20 to 25 loads a day in.
Clarks Hill Lake is a reservoir for lots of communities all the way down to Augusta. And the large tract of land that Broad River Valley Farms dumps on in Elbert County is right on the Broad River. And so there's no telling what's ending up in the river, and it's just a few hundred yards down the Clarks Hill Reservoir from there.
Well, Little River and Broad River run into the Clark Hill.
That's right.
So people are really concerned. We talked about the smell and the flies, but when they're putting it out close to somebody, they're worried about their wells. I mean, and people don't know what to do. They don't know who to call. They don't know what to test for. They don't know, and it really scares people. That there could be, something put there that, whether it is or not. Having that fear and having to worry about that, is really concerning to people that really are living in a place where they don't think they're affected by something like this. But when you're bringing millions and millions of gallons of something to right next to somebody's house and not far from somebody's well, it scares it. It scares them a lot.
On that side of the road, here's my property, and this is the runoff. Yes, it's raining. This is the same hole where I got the sample from before. And as you can see, the runoff is directly on my property. That pipe comes under the road.
Within probably 2 days of the waste being spread out on the ground, buzzards appeared. And we know buzzards eat dead, rotting flesh. They don't eat fertilizer. They're not out there just to, eat chemicals. They eat dead, rotting flesh. So we knew it was not good within the first few days of the waste being applied, because the field was covered with buzzards. And the smell immediately, when they started putting out the waste, the smell is unlike anything you've ever smelled before. It's just a putrid, horrid smell. And the way our farm is set up, the direction that it is in from the farm that was receiving the waste, the wind blew that smell directly onto my father's farm and almost directly into his front yard. And so, as a 79-year-old man who's retired, who is also disabled, him sitting outside, enjoying his farm, looking at his cattle, his livestock, just enjoying the day, he could no longer do immediately because, number one, the smell. That was what happened first. And like I said, we saw the buzzards, they appeared. And it was probably not too much time went by and the flies started. And we're not talking, a few flies that are a nuisance. We're talking, it became a plague of flies. You could not sit outside without the flies.
It wasn't just like a regular fly that you can fan away. It was groves of flies. And it was very uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable coming in because the flies got in the church. And then we come back, probably another 6 months, we had an event outside. And this was right at the height of it. And it was extremely uncomfortable. We had fans that could move them somewhat, but the fans didn't even move them. And that was, and I've heard about this, but never to this magnitude. I mean, in South Georgia, you hear about the gnats or what have you, but here I've never heard the flies the way they were, not knowing they were attached to this waste or whatever it is that they were distributing, and it was just uncomfortable. But not only was it uncomfortable, it was inhumane in my eyes, because it was disturbing a place of peace, a place that we came to worship, to enjoy each other, and that was disturbed by that distribution.
We didn't know how to get in touch with anybody to really represent us, so we had to deal with it. And my wife, she wasn't able to sit out on the back porch or anything, and even when I came out here in my yard to work, to do some repairs and try to do work, flies was all over me.
The fly infestation, or whatever you want to call it, became so great that they even traveled 3 miles into our little town of Avra. People there 3 miles away couldn't even grill out anymore. It was summer then, and children, were out of school. They couldn't play outside. One of the residents in town, he talked about his little girl would be outside playing, and little girls, and they would come in, and the flies were so bad they would be in their hair, and the mother would be having to wash their hair and comb them out because they would just get tangled in their hair. Animals, outside animals can't get away from flies, and now you've got a lot of trucks coming in and out during the day, and we're not talking 1 or 2 a day. We're talking multiple every single day for 69 straight days.
There was one day, I took one full day from like 8 o'clock in the morning. I quit at 5 o'clock because it was time for me to feed up and, look after everybody. From 8 to 5, I counted 32 trucks that were going up and down this road. 32.
If it was a good product, they would be spreading it closer to the, where it's generated at. Plus, they wouldn't have to pay people to take it. I mean, it's just that simple. When you putting it on a truck and hauling it 100 miles just to get rid of it and just to dump it.
Why does Warren County have to take waste generated in Hall County?
Yeah, that's just, it's a problem. Like Sam said, why are they hauling it so far? I mean, the cost of fuel alone is very, very costly in those big trucks, and they paying somebody to take it. As they always say, if it's too good to be true, and it sounds too good to be true, it probably not that good.
All of these soil amendments are being derived from various types of waste products, but many, if not all, of the people marketing soil amendments at least imply, and if you look at their websites in some cases more than imply, that you're going to get nutrient value out of using their materials. It'll help your stuff grow greener and thicker and whatever. That's a little contrary to the intent and the letter of the law, let alone the spirit of the law.
The mystery of it, the unknown of what exactly it is that they're putting out, because that's that's been something from back in my days with EPD. You never really. I was telling Lee, y'all may know this, I worked my first complaint when I was with the state with EPD in 2009. So yeah, Edward County's been battling it forever. And so yeah, the odor and the flies and everything, but also I think what people are most concerned about is what is it?
It's been touted by some of the haulers and other players involved as a fertilizer. It is not. It is not. In fact, not managed, it can be very harmful because it can raise the pH in the soil. It's defined. That's, if it raises the pH in the soil too high, it's dead. Nobody knows because nobody's there to test or to check.
We call it Georgia's dirty little secret because that's exactly what it is. It is a process of taking industrial waste, reclassifying it as a farm product, and applying it indiscriminately throughout Georgia without record keeping. And that is leaving Georgians at risk. And currently, especially since ag is the #1 industry in Georgia. Ag comes from our rural communities. I think this is directly in conflict with that industry, and we have to be very careful as we move forward to make sure we're regulating it and that it's actually safe. And I don't think we've even come close to answering the question, is it safe? Because the ag department refuses to even ask the question in the first place of the haulers.
There seems to be sort of fuzzy definitions of what a product is when they say soil amendment, and it's very concerning because people that are engaged in this kind of activity where they're treating the land, for the most part, I think know what's really going on, but the language has been made vague. In fact, if you try to look up the definition of soil amendment, it basically says you can add anything to the soil that improves that soil and makes it better. I mean, talk about being vague.
Anytime that you have a product, and I'm going to be specific to this one, in this case, it is chicken renderings that we're referencing, industrial waste chicken renderings. Anytime you have that, instead of sending it to a wastewater treatment plant to be dealt with and managed through that means, they look for alternate uses for it. Many times those are financially driven. So this is a far cheaper methodology to pay a farmer a few $100s an acre to put it on their property as it is to pay 30+ cents a gallon to have it treated. So it is a cost avoidance first and foremost before it's anything else. So you can say also, well, it's trying to take a waste product and find a beneficial use for it. Well, let's explore that. That's fine. But let's not hide behind the fact that the first and foremost is cost avoidance. And if we can couple the two together, then you got a great marriage. But I think myself, with my background and experience, and I know that I would want the land branch to validate that the material going down is in fact suitable for land application.
Resolution of this issue is critical. The lack of oversight is hurting rural Georgians. Enforcement against bad actors is crucial, and loopholes must be closed.
I used to use the term all the time. The best plan in the world never survives the dumbest guy on a bulldozer. And this is similar. The best supposed application is not going to survive the guy out there on the tractor or the injector or whatever they're using, who just need to get a little bit more down, and this is a hard turn to make. Little things like that, little things add up to big problems. Regulated, watched, done right, certainly something that can be useful in Georgia.
If this is going to stay with the Department of Ag, we'd like them to at least notify us. When is it going to be coming into our county? Where is it going to be applied? Have they done the soil test? Do we know what the absorption rates are? And so at least they could let somebody within our county, either our code enforcement or our extension agent, help them. They can get out and make sure they are applying it correctly. They're not applying it in a rainstorm. They're not applying it when it was running off into a creek. Just let us help police where the Department of Ag says they don't have the manpower to do so. Let us help.
Yeah, I think that would be one of the best ways to do it is let's be partners. We partner with EPD for soil erosion plans. We do that and help EPD and make sure those things are done correctly. I think this is another area we could do that. Like Lee said, let a code enforcement extension service, somebody know. And then if it's not right, we could do a stop work order, call it Department of Ag, and then they could send somebody to do all the follow-up investigation. We could combine efforts to help each other out. Because I've seen, it's raining and they're out there putting it down. The rules say that you're supposed to be put down, injected, and then dry within an hour. Well, if it's raining, that's not happening. And if it just rained 3 inches within the last 24 hours, that's not happening. And I've seen that's when it's continuously being put down because the trucks never stop, like Sam said earlier. Everybody knows what those trucks look like now. They're constantly coming and going. Mm-hmm. So I think we just need some partnership where we're able to stop something, get Department of Ag down, follow up investigation, and see what we can do to try to control this, because like Sam said earlier, this red clay is just going to run off. It's not going into the ground.
The methodology they're using is reasonable and has the potential to be successful. But at this point, the agriculture department can't even tell you where it's going down. They can't even track the locations because they don't have the training and resources to do so. You can continue to point out areas, not of deficiency, but of lack of resources. And unless the state's going to fund a massive expansion for land plat application in the agriculture department, let the folks you've already invested in do it.
So we think number one, right to know, means that they should actually have to submit records of what they're up to, and that means the ag department should actually tell, especially the local municipalities, what's actually happening in the backyard. Second is that these need to actually be farms. If you are going to take this waste as a soil amendment, to amend your soil to make it better for a product, you should in fact be making a product. I am not aware of a single facility that has received this waste that is selling a product from it. I think they're all dumps. They need to not be dumps. The third one is the right to help. The ag department currently has 2 staff members for a program that we know has at least over 100 distribution points on this side of the state. We don't know how many on the other side. There's no way it's receiving proper oversight. Local municipalities want the ability to help regulate and to help give oversight to the ag department, and they should be awarded that. That is not a new thing, but it would be very helpful. And then the last is just to know that it's safe. We know this is coming from municipal wastewater. We know it's coming from dog and cat food and different aquariums and all kinds of different waste labeled with funny names so you don't actually know the source, and then being applied indiscriminately without proper testing. And we think it is imperative that proper testing be done on these soil amendments to prove that they're safe before they're allowed to be applied in these rural areas and communities.
I'm always charged by persons who are willing to ignore humanity for any selfish gain. That is the antithesis of what we worship here as Christians. We worship a leader that was selfless, who died for us. So for me not to speak out against this would be the opposite of what I believe.
We know this is spring water running through the earth, and we should not be worrying about where it is contaminated or not. So I'm asking the government for help us. You see our need, and I'm sure you have some land in the country too. Think about your children and your family when they go out there, or when you visit the country life. You know what I mean? So you should think about that. And as you know, being an old soldier who fought in Vietnam, so I like to think better of this country, and they expect this country to do better.
We live on a hay farm in Oglethorpe County, and we love it. Our neighbors are friends on all 4 sides. No matter where we look, we can see and hear cows. I repeat, we love it. Agriculture is Georgia's largest industry, and we need to support our farmers. But in this soil amendment debate, there doesn't need to be a winner and a loser. Let's examine the facts and look for better solutions. There's no right way to do a wrong thing.
These issues are not about agriculture. It's not about farmers. It's not about the chicken processing plants. It is how do we protect the people in Georgia, and how do we create a more sustainable and healthier climate so that people can continue to prosper and businesses will want to come back and do business in Georgia.
I don't consider myself an extreme environmentalist by any means, but I am born and raised up here in Oglethorpe County, a rural area. I love to hunt, I love to fish, and when I went down there to Sam at the little river, with the fish kill, I was amazed. One thing with an EPD background, I've heard of fish kill, sometimes it occurs naturally. This was, when I got there, it took me about 30 seconds to say, well, this isn't a naturally occurring fish kill. I see fish of all sizes and varieties, and I was amazed at the health of Little River before that. and how much fish. It was a beautiful place. And I think there's some little kids' toys down there in the sandbar up under the bridge too. And so, from a hunter's perspective or a fisherman's perspective, like, that's messed up. They just decimated this creek, this river that was really, really healthy. Hopefully it's recovered by now, but anyway, so I'm looking at it too from another point of view, just from a personal point of view now. Like, don't nobody want to be a victim of that, out there in your streams and rivers and whatnot.
I like what Wendell Berry has to say. Do unto others downstream as you would have others do unto you upstream. We don't need to turn friends and neighbors into feuding Hatfields and McCoys. Let's find a better solution.
We need your help. Contact your Georgia legislative representative today. Let them know you want to see more safeguards and checks on the use of soil amendments in Georgia. To learn more, visit GeorgiaRuralProtectionAlliance.com.